Hi, you guys, and welcome back to the podcast.
We are the Carwells.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Sarah, and we are, as you know, Airbnb interior designers and investors. All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Catch Up with the Carwells. I'm Sarah.
I'm Emily. We're actually together today, so this is weird.
I know. And today we have Sage with Minoan. Hello, Sage.
Good morning, guys.
Thanks for joining us today. We're so excited to kind of pick your brain for an hour, so thank you.
The feeling is very mutual. I feel like I have more stuff to pick y'all's brain on, but it'll be good.
Well, as you guys know, we start every single episode with an Airbnb horror story. So before we dig in with Sage about Minoan and their business model and all the ways that Minoan can help you with your B&B, let's lightheartedly start the conversation with an Airbnb horror story. So Sage, I'll let you take over the mic and tell us an Airbnb horror story that you've experienced.
Sounds good. So I'm not a host yet, so most of my stories are from being a guest. But last year, I was having a reunion with some of my old work friends in Scottsdale, classic, who doesn't have a short-term rental in Scottsdale. And it was time to check out, so we were going through the checklist, making sure all the sheets were put up, all the dishes were put away, and we went outside to make sure it was one of those classic Scottsdale Airbnbs with pool toys and all of that stuff. So we put it away, and then I go around the side of the house to take out the garbage, and the entire side of the house is underwater. Like the outdoor area is basically flooded. And Scottsdale, no grass grows, so it's that turf material. All the rocks are underwater, basically up to my mid-shin. And we're checking out. My Uber has been called to go to the airport. So I don't know what's going on. I feel in distress that the entire Airbnb is going to flood. So I didn't book it, but I asked my friend, you should probably message them and let them know that the side of the house is basically a second swimming pool. And to be honest, I don't actually know what ended up happening. I got on my flight, went back home, and it wasn't my problem to deal with. But I, as a guest, was terrified that my rating, that I was going to get roasted by the Airbnb owner. But I think it was just something with the pool gauge. I don't know. You guys probably know this stuff better than me. But the side of the house was basically underwater as we were checking out. So that was my guest horror story.
And as a host, I'm just trying to imagine if I were the host, receiving news that my house is underwater. I'm just you're just waiting for that call.
And I'm
I just was worried that it was going to go in, inside the house, and then I'm I don't know what to do.
And maybe if you were in Seattle, you'd be oh, there was just a lot of rain that day. It'll filter out. You're in Arizona. It did not rain that day. That's not where that water came from.
No, but hopefully it was so hot that it just evaporated.
Yeah, it has to be. Arizona's so hot.
The sun resolved the issue.
Yeah, the sun, Mother Nature came and did her thing. I was not there to see how the cookie crumbled, but it was scary.
Yeah. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and I don't know that I'm ever going to choose to have a pool at my Airbnb just because I feel there are so many issues with the pool. My in-laws have a pool, and it feels like my father-in-law is constantly having work done on it. And so I'm just thinking of how much of a hassle that would be. I understand the value of it when somebody's booking, but I don't want to deal with that on the back.
Yeah, you guys already have enough with hot tubs, and it sounds like those are already a lot of maintenance, relatively speaking. And then a pool is basically 7 hot tubs combined, and it doesn't have a cover like hot tubs do. So anyway.
Yeah, I know. Water. Orange Cadillac with a pool. Although that one does have a cover. That's super nice. The house was luxurious enough that it came with you type in a code and the cover is electronic, which
fancy. How do you know you've made it?
Yeah. Right. And it's a huge save because if there's even one leaf in the pool when people arrive, they're refund. Cleaning fee back, and we're okay, quit.
That's true. Michigan, I feel does have pool covers a lot of the time. They're a hassle to put on, but because of winter, when you close down your pool for the winter. Yeah. But down south, we never covered the pool really.
Never.
No.
Our Texas girls, we know.
Yes. So my in-laws' pool is in Texas, and I think they might.
You have to have one there, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so for our listeners, as we kind of shift and dive into all things Minoan, why don't you give everyone who maybe doesn't know who Minoan is and what you guys do, your elevator pitch on why you guys are relevant to the Airbnb space?
Happy to. So we are a totally free platform to help Airbnb owners, short-term rental designers, and property managers furnish their spaces. We don't do design. You don't want us to help you design your space, but we work with over 150 different brand partners like Wayfair, Crate and Barrel, Article, West Elm, Pollywood, and a billion others, and have really steep discounts on them, oftentimes better than a traditional trade or wholesale pricing. And we believe that you guys as short-term rental owners should never be paying full price. And a lot of you guys have still been, not you guys, but the general you have still been paying full price for everything. And so we created Minoan to not only help you guys save money, but the entire platform is a system to help you manage the furnishing process. So you can see real-time tracking updates. You can buy everything from all these different brands in one place. So it just makes the entire process of sourcing furniture, buying furniture, tracking it all the way up until it gets to your property. And then, of course, Sarah, like you guys know, we also help with customer service when things get a little messy. And it's totally free. So that is the quick elevator pitch about Minoan.
Yes, I love that. One thing that I will say too is, ever since we shifted into using Minoan, because Emily and I spent the first couple of years in the Airbnb space being like as cheap as humanly possible because we were broke. And we just never spent any amount of money on any nice furniture, right? And now that we're 4 years into this and we're really seeing like the wear and tear on the furniture and the ROI attached to nice furniture, being introduced to you guys when we was such a game changer because we were like, how are we supposed to afford some of this really nice furniture? It's not like we can double our furniture budget. And the discounts that you guys have are steep, like shockingly steep.
Mm-hmm.
We went through a lot of this to get those.
Yeah.
No, but I mean,
So
the
will you
value that you
explain
guys
to our
bring
listeners, because I've
is
read a
really,
portion of your
really
guys' business
important
model in the book
in this
Direct
industry.
Blueprint that Mark released, and I thought it was so interesting, and I just like didn't understand why brands would be giving us such steep discounts. Will you talk through kind of the motivation that brands have and why they're interested in giving us discounts?
Yeah, of course. I mean, if you think about how many people come through, you guys probably have actual numbers for your properties and how many guests you're seeing a year. It's a lot of foot traffic coming into those short-term rentals. If you think about what a brand's goal is, it's to get their products and their brand out in front of customers who are going to be using it. That's why digital advertising exists, right? They're targeting you with ads, whether it's a mattress, whether it's a hair dryer, a bike, whatever it may be. They want you to see their brand. But my background and our founder Mark's background's in retail, and basically what we realize is like that, that's not the best way to experience a product. If brands could get their products in front of people, that's why sampling exists, right? When you go to the grocery store at Costco, whatever, they have all these samples. Because if you try it, and if you like it, you're much more likely to buy it versus just seeing a picture of it or seeing it on a shelf. And so our pitch to the brands is, hey, these short-term rentals and Airbnbs are showrooms for your products without you having to pay a lease. You don't have to pay rent. You don't have to pay store employees, right? You just get to give these people a discount, which they deserve, and they're basically going to market your products. I know, and I've seen it all the time as a guest when I'm booking short-term rentals on Airbnb. I will look at the reviews. People they're going to mention what's in the property. It's either going to be in like, oh my gosh, it was so beautiful and they put so much time and thought, or it's going to be like, this is the most disgusting place, just like the place you guys stayed at like just the other weekend, the Instagram versus reality. It's that entire thing. Luckily the beds were comfortable. But in short, brands understand that the importance of having people test their products is incredibly valuable, and those moments happen every single day in your property. So they're like, yes, that makes sense. That's exactly where we want to be, because those are the people who are sitting on the couches, sleeping on the mattresses, who then go and buy that for their own home.
Yeah.
Maybe not an IKEA sofa, right? But like the brands that we work with, of course.
So true.
Yeah. And the way that you got your company started, I didn't hear the story until Nashville earlier this year.
Yeah.
Like I'd heard of Minoan and like started looking into using it, but Mark like actually came up with the idea because he was like, I want to buy the stuff in a property that I'm staying in. And so the idea sprang from there. And you guys, I feel like you're like kind of a sales, but marketing for these brands too. Like you're like a marketing team for them in general. So it feels like you guys do a lot in between like being the middleman.
Yeah, we think of it as like an extension of their team, right? Like we're helping basically sell their products. They're not paying us to sell their products. Like we're helping them market their brands, sell their products. And then also helping with discoverability with guests, getting a brand. Everyone knows West Elm. Everyone knows Crate and Barrel. I never heard of Article before I joined Minoan, and my bed frame's from Article. Like, I love them. And it's just one of those brands that if you're not bombarded with ads or you don't see the West Elm store in like your shopping center or anything like that, you may not have awareness of. And so we are helping these brands gain exposure within the short-term rental community.
I love that. Well, and I will say I've had my mind, I guess my eyes opened or my mind shifted around brands and how the items that you put in your property, you're communicating with your guests directly, whether you realize it or not, right?
Yeah.
And so, of course, this past week I was with Maddie from Maddie and Skylar. If you guys follow them on socials, I know that you guys are really big fans of theirs as well. But Maddie came from the marketing world previous, right? And so she's kind of got that predisposed like idea in her head that she's always semi-focusing on more than maybe me, right? And so in her property, she's been so intentional about curating a space that is perfectly catered to her ideal clientele. And I know that at the beginning, Emily and I did not necessarily understand how powerful that could be. And so her and I were having a conversation this past week about like, okay, well, her property is in very ritzy Hudson, New York, right? Like you are dealing with like some of the bougiest people. You're dealing with like true like New Yorkers, like wanting to get out of New York City. And so I was like, well, of course, like brands are even more important for people in those markets. And she was like, Sarah, she's like, that's not true at all. She's like, it's just a different brand that maybe is speaking to your ideal clientele. She's like, so although like the brands that I put in my property may be higher end and more expensive than the brands that you put in your property, there is still brands that are perfectly catered towards your ideal clientele. And so if you can understand that clientele, then you're like, either subtly giving them encouragement during your stay or you're subtly being like, I don't care about you at all through all these products that you choose. So
100%.
It just is one of those things that like, I think coming from interior design based and not like a branding marketing base, it's a whole new world for us. So we're like, whoa, like, wait a minute, this really impacts.
Yeah, you really have to shift the perspective. Like I saw how Maddie and Skylar like designed that property and they did such an amazing job. We could have a whole podcast just on Maddie and Skylar. But I mean, they did such a good job and they did not cheap out. Like they really went above and beyond. And I know that she was like a little bit nervous, right? When you're spending that much money, one, just to get the down payment on the property, and then you're going to invest another, whatever, thousands and thousands of dollars into furnishing. You're like, is this going to work out? And it's worked out great for them. Listen, it doesn't always happen. It's not like, oh, if you buy, an Article sofa, you're going to make more money. But the reality is they did it so intentionally with their demographic in mind that it worked out very well because of how much thought and like time they put into that. Because of course they could have just furnished it with like Furniture Warehouse or some of those places. But she's like, no, I know what's going to attract the people that I want who are going to book at this ADR. So kudos to them.
Yeah. It's funny that we didn't really think about that because we went on a girls trip to Seattle 2 years ago now. Mm-hmm. And I remember we were all in the property and it was a lot of interior designers and everybody's like, oh my gosh, this couch is from West Elm. Like, this is a really nice couch. And I noticed the pans because they were the pans that I had gotten for my wedding and they're really nice pans that my in-laws had gotten me. And I was like, wow, they spent a lot on this property and they really took the time to like pay attention to what they were putting in it. And so I was like, this is a really fancy and worth what we spent on it because we finally got to the age where we're like, let's spend a little bit more on our girls' trips and not skim so much. And so
no more sharing beds, no more couches.
Sarah and I still shared a bed, but that's just because we're Sarah. That's just because we're us.
Sisters, yeah.
But yeah, and I was like, I would come back here and I would pay this amount, maybe even more, knowing the high quality of stuff that's going to be in the property. Even the fridge was like one of those fancy ones that you could like knock on the door and see what was in the fridge. And I was like, this is very fancy. Yeah. And so I pay attention to the brands that are in the Airbnbs that I stay in. So why did I not think that the guests that are staying in mine would? And so it completely changed the way that I was designing going forward.
I think I've been ruined by working at Minoan in a good way because anytime I go anywhere, I'm in Denver and I went for a long weekend in Steamboat. It was my first time in Steamboat. And we were just walking around the town and I saw these chairs that were like in the outdoor area. I'm like, I think those are Pollywood. I'm going to go look. And so I like stray away from the crowd. I'm like, yep, they were. So now I pay attention to that too, everywhere that I am, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's at the, like literally any place that I go, I think about that now. Like, oh, you were really thoughtful here. Oh, I can tell that like you just took a shortcut here. That stuff matters, and it matters a lot.
I notice it in restaurants now. Chandeliers, I'll be like, I know where that's from.
Even I was at, oh man, I can't remember. It was some restaurant, and I flip up the cup, and I'm like, yeah, that's a Maiden cup. I have those cups myself. Like it's a really cool cookware brand based out of Austin, but I'm just so much more like hyper focused on what's around me and where people, if I'm going out to a nice restaurant, I don't want to flip over the plate and see that they got them at IKEA. Like I don't, because then I'm like, oh, okay, I'm paying $100 for dinner tonight and you paid 50 cents for this plate. Like something's not adding up, but I totally hear you.
Yeah. Well, and I think what you guys have done a really great job of as well is incorporating high-end and budget brands, right? Because we always talk about this with our mentees is that when it comes to designing these properties, everybody's got some sort of a limited budget. So in a perfect world, maybe all of us would get to design it as extravagantly as Maddie and Skylar did the Warren Street Suite. But that's not realistic for everyone, especially at the beginning of their journey. And so with you guys, on top of the steep discounts that you offer on all of the brands, you also have such a variety of brands that allow people to splurge on the pieces that they need to, like the sofa, like the bed frame, like maybe the primary bedroom nightstands, but then reel it back and still shop at places like Wayfair for side tables and lamps and some pieces that maybe aren't as important to make sure that the quality level is there. And so for us, I know that when we first talked to you, like that was huge for us because we were right in the middle of this transition of being like, okay, we understand the importance now way more than we did before, but we're still in this phase of like transitioning into that.
Yeah. And it makes sense. Like not everyone is going to have what I call a restoration hardware budget. And you don't need that. Like Wayfair is still a great brand, they're a marketplace. So it can be hit or miss depending on like what you get. There are going to be good gems everywhere with every single brand, right? But I appreciate you mentioning that because it's really important. Like people love to talk about, oh, Minoan works with West Elm and Crate and Barrel, and we do, and they're great partners, and we do a lot of business with them. But not everyone has that budget. But the nice thing is when people sometimes on the flip side, people say, oh, West Elm, I can never afford that. Listen, I'm a consumer myself. Like that stuff's expensive. It's really, really expensive. But when you factor in that Minoan discount, if you're looking at your overall budget and you're like, hey, I want to spend $1,500 on a couch. And that's still a lot, regardless of where you get it from. But the discounts that we have on those brands, like a West Elm, like a Crate and Barrel, could make that couch that used to be aspirational and totally out of reach now within budget. So like you said, you can invest in those nicer, like more important standout pieces. And then you can go to other brands like a Wayfair, a Castlery, or any of those other partners that we work with for some of the smaller things that don't matter as much, but aren't going to get as much wear and tear, like the bed frame, like the sofa, etc.
Right.
You'll know this better than me though.
Yeah, I feel like it's also worth mentioning too, because I feel like when a lot of us talk about Minoan, we're talking about major furniture pieces or decor and things like that. But you guys also work with brands that have supplies for the property as well, like towels, dishware, all kinds of things like that. So can you kind of speak to why you guys decided to include that aspect in it as well?
Yeah, because it's not all about the furniture. Like that's the biggest investment up front, right? But the idea is if you invest in really nice quality furniture that you're not having to replace it every year. What are you having to replace more often? Your linens, your towels. People are going to wipe their makeup on it. You're going to have to replace glassware that gets broken. Your cleaners are going to need cleaning supplies to come in and routinely clean the property. That's more of what we call like the replenishable items. And so we realized that we want to have a comprehensive assortment. The goal for Minoan is that you can get everything you need to set up your property. Are we there yet? No, not quite. We're young. We're like 3 years old. But we've made a lot of strides from hearing feedback from people like you guys. Oh, it'd be so nice like if you worked with a rug partner. It'd be so nice if you work with blah, blah, blah. Oh, we really wish that we could buy cleaning supplies through you guys. So we work with brands like Parachute for linens. We work with hospitality grade linen companies too to help you guys buy better quality linens, right? For more affordable prices. Same thing with cleaning supplies. We work with Tide, we work with Clorox, just other brands to help you guys get everything that you need. And it doesn't, like, there may be things, I tell people this all the time, and I probably say this on every podcast too, but it's true. Minoan's probably not the place for everything. It still may make sense for you to get your toilet paper and your paper towels at Costco or at Target. Like, that's just something that's easy. But for some of these items like linens and towels, if you can plan a little bit more ahead and be strategic, you're going to save more money and more time in the long run because you're not having to make a 911 run to Walmart or Costco or Target because you need a set of sheets. So that was probably a longer answer than you bargained for, but why we've done that is to make sure that we can set our hosts and members up for success and hope that we can be that place where they can get the majority of what they need and spend less time doing these one-off runs or one-off purchases from all these other retailers.
Yeah. And I know that what's been a strategy of Emily and mine, and what we've kind of, I guess, instilled in the people who have asked us how we've gotten as far as we've gotten, because of course you start with a very small budget, is that, like, I am guilty of buying Walmart sheets and Walmart pillows and like the lowest brand products possible because I poured all of my money into a hot tub or like whatever the case may be, right? A lot of those last minute supplies that you buy end up kind of getting the shaft on quality right at the end. But in that same breath, we discover so quickly that, like, oh my gosh, these sheets are not meant to be washed every other day, right? And these pillows are not meant to be used every single day in every single room. And the towels aren't meant to be put through the dryer every single day. And so all of a sudden, like, even if you at your own home have Walmart sheets or Walmart towels or whatever the case may be, there is something about hospitality grade products that are going to last longer. And so even if you don't use them at the beginning, it's like, okay, but if we can understand the value, then when it comes time to replace them and you've made some money on your property, when you go to purchase it again, because you inevitably will have to because it ruins quickly, then go back to Minoan and be like, okay, now I'm ready to like spend some money on some quality product.
Yeah, it does not. I think it's a really good point because it doesn't have to all be at the same time. Like, I understand the amount of money that goes into these, maybe not the headaches, except from hearing from them secondhand, but I understand the investment that owning, operating, co-hosting short-term rentals can be financially. So I think what you said is perfect. You don't have to get West Elm sheets to start. I mean, I actually wouldn't necessarily recommend West Elm sheets because that's also for consumers. But you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to get super top of the line sheets to start. You can do what you said. If that's, if you need to go to Costco and get your sheets for the first year, first couple months, that's fine. But I know, and you guys know, that you're going to have to replace them a ton. And so it's going to make sense, especially if you want to scale. If you have one property, you could probably get by. But if you're trying to make this into a business, you're going to need to think about the stuff that you're putting into the property a little bit differently. You don't go to hotels and see them using Target sheets. You don't go to hotels and seeing them use Costco pillows. And there's a reason for that. Because, like you said, the wear and tear, the amount of washes, like, no one washes their sheets at home 3 times a week.
Right.
I don't.
Either. Our listeners, if you do, you're the exception to the rule.
Yeah, I had a TikTok once where somebody was like, does she not wash her sheets? And I'm like, I wash them and I put them back on the bed, but like, I wash my like once a week bedding.
Yeah, mine isn't even once a week. Let's be honest. Mine is like maybe once a month.
I'd say once a week's pretty solid.
I'm lucky if I do my own clothing laundry once a week.
That's on my to-do list for today at some point when I get to it. But I completely agree.
Yeah. Well, I know I'm stealing a question of Emily's that I thought was really great.
Just gonna go.
Okay, yeah, you ask it then.
No, you mentioned getting feedback from hosts when you're like looking at the brands. So how do you guys actually vet the brands that you are going to take on as partners, and how do you decide like how far you're going to take it, how many options you're going to give people, stuff like that?
Another good question. So when we started, we're like, we need to onboard as many brands as possible to give people as many options as possible. And what we realized is like we were being a little bit too lenient with like people that, we're like, oh, this really niche, I don't know, chapstick brand. I have chapstick on my desk. So the super niche chapstick brand. That'd be great to go in welcome baskets, but it's like, is that really what people want? No, they want like discounts on electronics. They want discounts on furniture. So I think our approach to start, and again, we're young, so we're constantly learning. I was like, let's cast a wide net. And then we're like, actually, no, I don't think that's the right thing to do. I think that because we're not hosts, we need to learn from our members who are hosts on what they care about. Like, you guys want a rug company? Okay, great. We go and onboard Tumble Rugs, a really great, like washable rug company, similar to Ruggable, but not quite, or not the same, I guess. Really great pricing. And so we want to hear from you. What are you buying? What are your pain points? Oh, I can't find like artwork. It's so annoying to find. I have to go to like Home Goods or Target. Okay, great. We work with Society 6. We onboarded Anthropology and Urban Outfitters. So we're trying to be more strategic now, not trying. We are being more strategic now in who we onboard based on what our gaps in our assortment are. So it's no longer the days of like, let's just cast this wide net. It's like, let's be really, really focused on what our users are telling us that they want and fill in gaps, right? Like smart locks, that's a huge one. It's not a sexy item, but it's something that you guys need. So how can we help fill that gap? How can we help fill the gap for outdoor furniture or grills or hot tubs? So we've definitely taken a different approach. In terms of how we vet them, it's like if we get 100 hosts in a week telling us that they want us to onboard X brand, then we'll go reach out to that brand. And the pitch is pretty easy for brands, right? Like we were talking about earlier, it's really a no-brainer for them. And so we just want to make sure that we can get pricing that's strong enough to offer to you guys. Because if it's not compelling enough, it's like, it's not worth it. They should understand the value that you guys are bringing. And that's what makes some of these partnerships so strong, like a West Elm, like a Wayfair, like an Article, Crate and Barrel, so on and so forth.
Do you have any brands that you've reached out to? And like you said, like now understanding your business model and understanding how many questions, like we get first line exposure to how many times we get asked where a sofa's from, where a mattress is from, so on and so forth. So I completely align that it's a no-brainer for brands, but have you had any brands that have like heard your pitch and been like, nah, not interested?
There are some I'm not on the brand side as much as I used to be as the team's grown. Like my role has become a little bit more narrow versus doing a billion different things. But there are certainly, I think every single brand that we talk to understands the value. It's, can we get to the right price point? Because we're not a trade partner. We don't want the discount that any designer can go up and sign up for on their own. We are bringing and creating a lot of value for you guys. And so we want to have a price point that reflects that value, right? Like with I can't say it out loud, but our West Elm discount, like you can't go to West Elm and get that on your own. That's the types of pricing and the types of negotiation and discounts that we want to be able to provide for you guys. So I don't really think it's ever been we don't understand your business model. Like this doesn't make sense for us. It's, can we get to the right pricing? And also it's, do they have the support and logistics on their end to be able to handle the demand that we have? Like we send a lot of orders every single day. So if it's like a smaller mom and pop shop, that can be a little bit challenging. But overall, like people are very, very excited about what we're doing.
Absolutely. Well, and I'll speak to just in our mentorship when we have the week around design. We specifically bring up your website because even for us, one of the most common questions that we get is like, where do you shop for furniture, right? And like we can tell them like a list of 5 places that we frequent, right? But again, it's because we know our market. It's because we know our clientele, like what our clientele likes, how to communicate with them, mostly because of you guys and Maddie, like now that we're paying attention to that. But in that same breath, it's like now we just can send them to Minoan so they can see all of the brands. And for us, that's exposed us to brands that maybe we weren't familiar with before.
We do.
Yeah. And so it's turned into this like little educational brand, like online platform that even if you're not buying anything, we're like, get on there and just like scroll through, get familiar with what's out there.
I think that's really important because a lot of people will reach out and they're like, oh, my home's already furnished. Like, can I still work with you guys? And the answer is yes, 1,000 times over. Yes, yes, yes. It's okay. And also, if I had $1 for every time someone was like, oh, I wish I found you guys before I furnished my property, I'd be able to quit, live on a boat, and have a really nice solo happy life. But the reality is, yes, of course you can. Because why? Because stuff is going to break. your nightstand's going to get damaged, your glassware is going to break, your sheets are going to get ruined. So you may think that you're done, but you're never done. So I get a heck yeah out of that. Like, you're never done. It's always
Painful.
Literally.
I had to watch my language, but there's always something. There's always something that's going to come up. And you should at least be, like you said, exploring, just poke around. It's free. There's no harm in doing so. And there will come a time where something's going to get damaged and you're going to need to replace it. So whether your home's fully furnished or you have an empty home that you just closed on and you need everything, we can help at any stage of the hosting journey.
Yeah. And you're like, I shopped from brands that I knew, but I would never have purchased their stuff without the discount that I was able to get through Minoan, because some of this stuff is just outrageously expensive. I got a couch from Article and I got a dining table from Crate and Barrel, and I love Crate and Barrel, but it's like way in the future I will maybe put Crate and Barrel in my house, but I was like, I need it to be high quality and I need it to still be stylish, and I can get a discount. Oh, sure, I'll get a Crate and Barrel table if I can order it through Minoan. I would have never even looked on their website outside of that.
Yeah.
Totally. And I think where some people can kind of like, veer off, it's kind of you get burned and then you learn. It's like, I can get it cheaper for Amazon. I can get like a dupe on Amazon. Sure, you can. And you can save a couple $100 initially, and then it's going to break. And then you're going to have to go back and buy it 3 more times. And at that point, you've now spent more money and more time than if you just were to invest in something nicer up front. But I really do think it's one of those things where people have to learn the hard way before they change their behavior. So when you guys decide to change the behavior, we will be here. Not you, the general you listening. We will be here for you.
Yeah, I mean, we went through that.
We
went through that. So, I mean, we learned all the hard lessons the hard way, right? Like, we didn't have any support around us. So we experienced that with investors, with our own products that we choose. We cannot speak that into existence enough for other people, that if you can purchase quality things, do. And if you can't at the beginning, you better be saving the pennies and not living on what this property is producing, because you're going to you have to go back in and purchase quality at some point. I have 2 specific questions for you. One, so before I knew that you guys existed, I purchased a sofa on, I think, Polly and Bark, maybe Article, I don't remember actually. But when I purchased it, I purchased the insurance with it because I was like, okay, the extra insurance covers like dog scratches, which the property's pet friendly. It covers like, if somebody were to fall asleep and pee on the sofa, like covers that. And then I purchased a couple of sofas with you guys before, and I've done it like very quickly on a whim because now things are chaotic. And I'm like, I don't remember if I purchased insurance with it or not. So is that something that you guys facilitate with the furniture? And then if we do need an insurance claim, is that something that we handle or that you handle?
That's a good question. So we do, if like Wayfair, for example, I know that they offer like protection plans, right? If you guys want to add that on, we can add that on for you. It'll be this, if it's $50 through Wayfair, $50 through Article, it'll be the same through us. Thankfully, knock on wood, we haven't had an issue yet where people have purchased that and then something has gone wrong to where we need to intervene. But in the same way with any broken item, damaged item, something you want to return, we would initiate that conversation on your behalf so that you don't have to go back. There may be a few questions like, can you send us a picture or something like that? But we would take the burden on for you guys.
That's like, for me, it's like, okay, a lot of our listeners will be hearing these steep discounts and they're gonna be like, oh my gosh, that's like enough of a reason to get on board with Minoan. But when you're doing this at scale and you have a million moving parts when it comes to like coordinating the ordering or the returns or the insurance claims or whatever else, having one person to communicate with, and that being you and not a million other brands and then third-party insurance companies, is such a win.
Totally. It just saves a lot of time. Like the amount of time that you guys and hosts spend on just doing like admin work, whether it's like checking your inbox to figure out has this item shipped, or shoot, this came damaged. Now I have to carve out time to call Article or call Wayfair. Like we just do that for you so that you guys can focus that time that you would be spending on hold or trying to get in contact with these reps on the other 1.5 billion things that are important to the business, like guests checking in or guests wanting a refund or the hot tub's not working. I mean, you guys have a lot of things going on daily. The last thing that you should be worrying about is trying to get in contact with a brand about a refund or replacement.
Yeah.
I was going to mention one thing that probably people are like, not even thinking about it as a benefit, having all of the invoices in one spot on your Minoan account is literally just like a godsend. I don't have to like go and search for this invoice anywhere. All of them are in one spot because it's all ordered through Minoan for all the different brands. I'm like, oh my gosh, that saves me so much time, and it's such a small thing, but it made such a difference for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, with like accounting and tax and all that fun stuff at the end of the year. Also, just for reordering, like for people who, do soup to nuts with Minoan, like, oh shoot, this whatever broke, or I need to buy another one of these for the next property I'm doing. It's all cataloged in your Minoan account. So you don't have to like sift through receipts on your desk or go back through old emails. You just log into your Minoan account, look at your past orders. Oh, for the orange Cadillac, yes, I bought this article sofa. Boom, add to cart, order again. Like it's pretty simple to have a record of everything that you purchase, which is important. If you want to buy the same stuff, if you need to replace it, you know.
Yeah, I am kicking myself for not for not using you guys sooner because we're currently handing it all over to a property manager and he's super thorough, right? But he's like, "Hey, I want all of the links to all of the furniture so when I have to replace it, like I have access to all that." And now I'm having to go back into properties that I designed 2 years ago and try and find all of those receipts and I'm like, "This is impossible." Like this is a nightmare.
It's a real thing. And the nice thing too, just when you mentioned like the property manager, you guys can collaborate. Had you ordered everything through Minoan for this property, like you could invite your property manager to be a member on your account so that they can see all the stuff you purchase. Hindsight's 2020, of course. This property may have been existing before Minoan even was Minoan. So it's all a good learning lesson. And again, you have to go through the pain to figure out how to do it better and differently next time.
Yeah, and if you're listening, just don't go through the pain and take our advice. Okay, so I have one more question for you as we kind of wrap up here. I know that there is a way to make, I don't know if you spend a certain amount of money or what the case is, where you can make your property shoppable. And I know as we get further into this, that's something that we're really, really interested in. So will you talk us through what that looks like with you guys?
Totally. So the other component of our business is, like you just mentioned, we can help make properties shoppable. And basically what that means is it completes the full circle with these brands, right? You're getting good discounts to purchase the stuff. Then you're creating a beautiful property, and inevitably, you're going to have guests say, "Oh, where's this sofa from? Where's this mattress from?" And you guys are creating those moments. And just like any influencer out there who has a like to know it or an Amazon storefront, we believe that you guys should be earning a commission. And so we can help you create this digital storefront that basically has all of the products in your property that you've purchased through a Minoan partner. And the way that it works is we just need your imagery, right? If you have like your Airbnb photos or anything like that from your direct booking site, we'll just use that to build the wireframe, take in the products that you've purchased through Minoan, boom, you market it, that's it. Anything that sells through the guest experience, there's a 50-50 profit share. So let's say you buy a mattress through Minoan for $300 and it sells for $600 at retail. That's $300 of profit. If a guest buys the mattress, that would be $150 for you guys, $150 for us. And if you think about it, now I'm going to test myself with math, so I'm not going to give you specific numbers to embarrass myself. But if you sell enough mattresses, it pays for itself. So that's like the 10x vision for Minoan, where furnishing and design turns from a cost center into a profit center is really like the vision for Minoan, where you're buying things that guests are going to be interested in, that they're going to want to buy. They buy it, and then you start recouping your money. And the way that it works, so you mentioned that there's no like minimum spend or anything. There is a minimum number of items just because it's a little bit manual on our end right now. We don't have like, a billion people on the team to build these. So once you've purchased at least 15 unique items through Minoan, which adds up very quickly, if you're talking soap, shampoos, cleaning products, it adds up very fast, then we can kick off that process for you. And at that point, if you've purchased an article sofa 3 years ago before you found out about Minoan, we can still add that in for you. So we'll take those 15 plus products that you have in your Minoan account. And then if there are any other items that you know of, that you have record of, from any Minoan partner, we can also add those in.
Ooh. Yeah, that's incredible.
So yeah, and it's like, I feel like for us, it extends past even just guests. Like I posted one photo of a couch and a million hosts, it feels like, are like, where did you get
Yes.
that? And I'm like, well, it's article,
Yes.
but I ordered it through Minoan. So if you want the discount, you're going to have to go through Minoan to get this
Yep.
couch because it
Yeah.
was an expensive couch
Yeah.
and nobody wants to pay full price for that.
No, I think people like you guys too who have such an incredible and like powerful social media presence and following, like you guys have a lot of influence over whether it's a new host, an existing host. Like people want to learn from, I do, people like you guys who've made the mistakes and are now being able to share it, right? Versus being like, nope, it's perfect. So I think like the vulnerability, I love Tip Tuesday, and that's one of my favorite days. And I think the education that you guys are providing, like in your mentorship, but also just for free on your page is really powerful. And so to connect the dots there, Emily, what I was saying was, you're right. Like people, it's not just guests, it's other hosts. They want to know what people are buying, what's working for them. So we're also trying to figure out how to like share more of that in Minoan, like what are hosts buying, what are guests buying, so that you guys also have insights into those different things. Like, hey, people in Michigan are buying this, people in New York are buying this, to help us help you make better decisions.
Yes. I love that. And I love that it's kind of a 10x vision because I think that it aligns so well with where us and other hosts see this industry going, right? It's like we're still bridging that gap between mom and pop host and hotel. And
Yeah.
you guys are already seeing like, okay, this is what's working in hotels. This is what we're pushing hosts to keep their standard at. And hosts are still back here, right? But at the end of the day, as we get closer and closer to here, it's like the traditional conversation around Airbnb is going to be a lot different because the upfront investment is going to be a lot higher because you'll have a lot of hosts who are now holding themselves to a hotel standard. And if that's the case, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, we're not making necessarily as much money as we were in the same capacity before, but now maybe we can make more money or make up that money that we're losing and how much more we're spending on the back end with these products. So I think that Minoan's hitting at such an interesting time because it is a perfect shoe-in for the direction that the industry is going by itself.
Yeah, we're excited to see where things go. Like we're young, the industry still feels very young, again, when you compare it to the hotel industry, but there's a lot that we can learn, all of us, from what the hotel world has done. And I feel like this industry is only going to keep growing and keep exploding and keep becoming more professionalized. And I think that's really what sets people apart when they think of this as a business. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been looking for a property like to stay at when I'm traveling. I'm like, people list this? People think that we're going to stay there?
Yeah.
People probably do, but not me. Like I think we all have to raise our standards, and that's what people look for in hotels is consistency. That's why they stay there. I think that's going to be really important for the short-term rental industry, is just to have those standards as it continues to grow. So I'm excited to see what happens.
Oh, we are too.
Yeah, I feel like we're constantly looking forward and like looking at a host who's doing better than us and wanting to reach that level. And so like
that's great though.
We continue doing this. It gets better. My mom just booked an Airbnb that offers like ice cream, chocolate syrup, nuts for the ice cream. I was like, how are they managing all of that on the back end? I was like, can you get their number for me so I can talk to these people?
I'd like to go pay a visit there.
Yeah,
have some nice ice cream and chocolate syrup.
Yeah, seriously. Well, Sage, thank you so much for coming on and talking through this. For our listeners, if you I guess this will come out afterward, but we have a brand partnership with Minoan that we're super excited about. We are excited to, kind of partner with you guys in that way because we just truly believe in what you're doing, and it completely aligns with the direction that we think both we're going and the industry is going. So you're definitely needed in the space. For our listeners, if you haven't got on Minoan, please do that. You are doing yourself a disservice if you are not plugging in with Minoan. Anything else as we kind of wrap up?
I don't think so. You want to plug Minoan, the website, your guys' social?
Yeah, sure. If anyone has any questions, I'm very accessible. If I'm not the right person to answer it, I can direct you to the right person on our team. So my email is just sage@minoanexperience.com. On Instagram, we're Minoan Experience, and our website is just minoanexperience.com. And I can share, Sarah, Emily, with you guys a link to where anyone who's listening who hasn't signed up can get $25 off their first order if they sign up.
Beautiful.
And if you guys want to be able to ask Sage direct questions, we're setting up a webinar with her in our community, The Space. So it'll be a little more personal. You guys can ask direct questions to Sage. So join The Space if you want to be a part of that.
Nice plug.
Thank you.
Emily, sales 101. All right. Well, Well, thank you so much again, Sage, for joining us. And thank you to our listeners. We will catch you next time. Bye.